financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Protesting anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of, it's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the power's even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was so good, life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. When you and God in time, I best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father?
We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. You are listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and Chief White House Correspondent. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and I pop right on up. You can't miss me. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And like magic, there I am for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. Now, I am really delighted to talk to our guest this hour. I'm talking about Dr. Anthony Estreet. I think I got that right. Dr. Anthony Estreet, we're going to figure that out. CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. We're going to be talking about his concerns about the Trump executive orders and such. And we'll also be joined with another guest that knows the human resources lane very well. Natalie E. Norfus, founder of the Norfus Firm, will be joining us as well for a very important conversation. But it's important that we give you a chance to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, well, this news just broke right before we went on air. NBC News reporting that a judge says that Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil cannot be deported from the United States as protesters call for his release. As hundreds of demonstrators rallied in New York City today to demand the release of Mahmoud Khalil, a federal judge just stepped away and blocked the Palestinian activist and Columbia University graduate's removal from the United States. Judge Jesse M. Furman said that Khalil is to remain in the United States, quotes, to preserve the court's jurisdiction as the court weighs a filing challenging his arrest and planned deportation. A hearing was scheduled for Wednesday at the federal court in New York City. For folks who are a little less familiar, it's important that you know that Khalil attended Columbia University and helped organize protests last spring about the war between Israel and Hamas militants in Gaza. And he was arrested by federal immigration agents just this past Saturday over what officials said was his support for a designated terror organization. Hamas, sound familiar? Hundreds of demonstrators rallied in New York City today to demand his release after President Trump said that Khalil was, quote, the first arrest of many to come. And speaking of President Trump, a lot of folks on Wall Street are increasingly concerned as NBC News is reporting that the Dow falls nearly 900 points and the NASDAQ dives 4% as stock sell-offs gather steam. Major stock indexes tanked today, continuing a sell-off that's gathered steam. It's first started gathering steam really last week as rattled investors have begun zeroing in on the prospect of a significant fall-off in U.S. growth amid persistent inflation and a wobbling job market. The S&P 500 index closed down 2.7%. And not only has it now given up on all of President Trump's post-election gains, but it fell to its lowest level since September. And it's essentially unchanged over the past 7 months. It was the biggest one-day drop since December. Recession fears were heightened this weekend after Trump declined to say that there wouldn't be one. In an interview with Fox News that aired just this past Sunday, President Trump responded to a question about the possibility of a recession, saying the economy was going through, quote, a period of transition. That's what he said. Today, the White House officials said that it's more important to look at the longer term. What that sound like to you? And so let us govern ourselves accordingly. And finally, NPR is reporting that more Black teens are in mental health crisis. The church is certainly trying to help them heal, but they can't do it alone. There's a story in NPR about the staff at First Corinthians Baptist Church that felt they had no choice but to tackle the issue of adolescent suicide risk in their congregation. There were folks there that referred families to outside clinics and therapists, but they kept returning to Lena Green, who oversees this mental wellness program at the church in Harlem. More than one parent told her that they were scared of going to sleep, fearful that they would lose their child to suicide overnight. You see, in recent years, experts have sounded alarms about the mental well-being of teenagers of all races. Research from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show escalating rates of mental illness among adolescents since 2010. Suicide is now among the top 3 leading causes of death for children ages 15 through 19. And historically, when we talk about Black kids, particularly Black teens were thought to be more insulated from suicide risk than their white peers, but experts caution that this is no longer the case. With rates of suicide in this racial group increasing more rapidly than any other. In fact, there's a study that showed a rise of 144% between 2007 and 2020. And so if you see something, say something. If you or someone you love is experiencing a crisis, call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis. When we come forward, Dr. Anthony, the CEO of the National Association of Social Workers, will be joining me along with Natalie E. Norfus, the founder of the Norfus Firm. You are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways. Airfare not included. See FVGradio.com for complete details. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird and get your complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. Proceeding is not sponsored by this station or
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text ROCK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text ROCK to 42424. That's ROCK to 42424.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Hit me! National News The Consequence. Informed opinion. And analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to welcome my next guest, Dr. Anthony Estreet. He is the CEO of the National Association for Social Workers, and he is here to talk about the Trump executive orders that are having an adverse effect on communities of color, the disadvantaged, immigrants, families, LGBTQ folks, the whole kit and caboodle. He's here to unpack those impacts and talk to us about what the National Association of Social Workers is doing about it. Welcome to the show, Dr. Anthony.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Just to let you know, March is Social Work Month. And so happy Social Work Month to all the social workers out there. Looking forward to engaging this conversation with you, as there has been a lot happening.
Very much so. And also joining us in this conversation, I'm really delighted to welcome Natalie E. Norfus. She's the founder of the Norfus Firm with decades of experience as a labor and employment attorney, particularly in the areas of human resources and diversity, equity, and inclusion. She really believes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to HR or DEI initiatives. And has focused on practical strategies that improve employee engagement, retention, and impact. I'm sure she has a lot to say about the impacts of these mass firings from an HR and DEI perspective. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to dig in here.
Sure. Well, so let's start, being that it is National Social Work Month. Let's start with Dr. Anthony to offer us sort of, a state of the industry when it comes to social workers, which touch so many different areas of our life, whether we're talking about the education system, our healthcare system, the justice system. Social workers, are deployed in lots of different ways, and in a lot of ways are the canary in the coal mine. No?
No, absolutely. One of our things that we always say is that social workers are everywhere. If you have not met a social worker in your life, you will at some point in time. So from birth all the way to death, you'll find a social worker. The current state of the profession is that, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has us listed as one of the fastest growing professions. At the same time, right, we're also seeing a lot of social workers starting to leave the field because of different barriers related to salary, employment, caseload, things like that. So, trying to limit the experience of burnout, but also think about ways of how to retain social workers in this field, because as you mentioned, we're in every aspect from child welfare all the way to tech, banking, artificial intelligence, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining in that space. We are the largest providers of behavioral health in the United States. And so, as you can imagine, when everybody was experiencing COVID, when everybody starts to experience mental health or substance use, and you mentioned earlier in your show the increase in suicidality among Black youth. So they're going to, at some point in time, come in contact with a social worker to impact their behavioral health. And so the more that we can take care of social workers, the more social workers can take care of the social safety nets.
Natalie, Dr. Anthony raises a really important point that social workers represent one of the fastest growing professions in our country. We don't have to wonder why. They're one of the fastest growing professions, given some of the challenges that we're seeing in our country. But, I'd love for you to sort of talk about this from an HR and DEI perspective. Yes, it's the fastest growing profession, but there are norms, best practices, emerging practices that have been adopted in recent years that right now are being dismantled. And so talk to us about how that makes the work more difficult, not just for social workers, but for folks that are really committed to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd say the first just really easy thing is that social workers, like therapists, like HR people, and other folks that are in the people business really have been on the front lines of seeing the sort of how people are breaking down, right? So I talk about this a lot because I still do HR investigations, and the way that people show up in investigations has been pretty frightening since COVID. People are bringing every single thing that is going on with them into these interviews. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was interviewing someone who shared a number of traumas she had before this workplace and after this workplace, and how that was impacting how she was showing up. And luckily, I have trauma-informed training, but most investigators are really not prepared for that kind of sort of emotional dumping that people are bringing to the situation. So I think when you bring that into the work that we regularly do with like workplace culture assessments and the like, we are constantly reminding our employers and our clients, you got to think about folks' mental health. They're not doing okay. So that's the first thing that we care about is how are people showing up? How do we address that? Because as I shared actually in a presentation earlier today to a Fortune 15 company, until we need only robots to do work, we still need people. And those people need to be taken care of, especially for publicly held companies that worry about things like shareholder value. You can't get that shareholder value if your employees are out of gas. And so I think first things first is we really need to put the conversation to this piece around how employees are impacted by all these different things going on in the world, and how that impacts the way in which they show up at work. I think that conversation is not at all being had enough. I think folks are really focused on, shareholder litigation, and we have to make sure that we're still making a profit. It concerns me how we're overlooking the people in all of this.
Yeah, overlooking the people, indeed. But let me tell you something. The National Association of Social Workers certainly is not overlooking the people, at least not in this open letter that was shared on March 5th. And for people who are less familiar, the National Association of Social Work is the largest membership organization for professional social workers. They sounded the alarm on the recent federal policies that hinder the advocacy work of social workers and undermine their ability to deliver effective care, especially when many of their clients are already grappling with the divisive impacts of these policies. Dr. Anthony, talk to us about how in this moment is your organization sort of prioritizing, which issues to push back on while it feels like there's an avalanche of issues that are coming at you?
Yeah, I think the approach of this administration, it is designed to overwhelm you, right? And so it feels like there's a lot happening, and there is a lot happening, right? And people have real feelings, and they've experienced real harm because of some of these executive orders that have come down, right? And so the way that we have been prioritizing is really looking at like what has been the greatest impact or what is going to impact the greatest number of people. And so some of those issues that have risen to the top of the list have certainly been around immigration. They've certainly been around freezing of federal funds. They've certainly been around the removal of diversity, equity, inclusion, because at the heart of everything in our profession, diversity, equity, inclusion is woven into the fabric of what we do, right? And so way before the language of DE&I became the language of DE&I, we've always had a social justice focus, which talked about, equity, which talked about diversity, which talked about making people feel like they are a part of, right? And so, when we're looking at many of these executive orders, especially, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, because a lot of this conversation has been relegated to race, it really waters down what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and really the understanding the nuances that diversity, equity, and inclusion, if we wanted to give it a different term, we could say, how do people show up as themselves, and how do they feel like they belong to the environment that they're in, whether that's a workplace, whether that's a school environment, whether it is your neighborhood, like how do people feel like they belong and included in those things, right? And so some of the things that when we talk about diversity and inclusion could be as simple as making sure that we have access points for people in wheelchairs. That's not a bad thing. That's making sure that people can enter buildings and can function within society from the vantage point of a wheelchair. Equally, when we think about, we just, I think it was last week, we saw a new executive, or not an executive order, but a new memo saying that they're going to start firing people from the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veterans Affairs is one of the largest employers of social workers. And if you think about, some of our veterans who have literally volunteered to do service on behalf of the country, and we're saying, hey, thank you for your service, but also we no longer need your services, that is kind of a slap in the face. And so when social workers aren't able to function in this space, when they're not able to do their job because of fear of losing their job, I think that is highly problematic, right? One of the things that we're also seeing is just increases in anxiety, fear, certainly people coming in for services because they don't know what's happening. On the other side of that coin is we have people that aren't showing up for services because they don't know if they're going to be deported, if ICE is going to show up, if something is going to happen, and they're no longer going to be able to return to their family. And so this has created kind of a tidal wave of advocacy within the social work profession where, I think the number one thing is from the National Association standpoint is that we will continue to advocate on behalf of social workers and the communities that we serve, but equally making sure that individuals are able to find their voice and advocate as well, right? Because this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. This is the time for coalition politics. So, the mantra that we've been telling social workers in the community is to educate, advocate, and activate. Make sure that you educate yourself about what's happening, advocate for what you're passionate about, and then activate to bring one more person or two along with you to get involved, right? Because we all have to do our part in this time.
Dr. Anthony, if I could just add to that, I think what you're hitting on is why this has been such an easy target, why DEI has been such an easy target, is we really as a DEI expert, over 20 years, we let the conversation get away from us. So if you think about what I keep telling clients is DEI is lawful, right? Because if you think about what we always had to be thoughtful of, it's not new, is Title VII of the Civil Rights of 1964, which prevents discrimination on the basis of race, gender, religion, color, and then there's obviously many other anti-discrimination laws at the federal level and across many states. So no matter which way you thought about DEI, you had to comply with those laws when you were doing it in the first place. And I always tell clients the way we're advising people to do DEI from the beginning was in compliance with those laws. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, we all kind of need to go back to like our 8th grade social studies class. The president doesn't have the authority to make law through an executive order. So if you look at the executive order, it was like broad reaching, and it was touching on things that the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over, even if he had jurisdiction over it. For example, local bar associations that are usually run either by a city or a state, organization. And so I think I would love for people to understand, for example, that executive order is already enjoined. The city of Baltimore, along with other cities, sued the government over this anti-DEI order, and a court has already entered an injunction saying they will probably win on the merits in terms of what they're arguing. And so I think that because we're not thoughtful of how those things work, it allows, as Dr. Estreet said, this hysteria to take over, right? The confusion of everything being attacked, but a lot of it is not even lawful. And so it's going to take some time for it to shake out. So I think that on that second point, I hope we can sort of develop some patience and also calm, because I've been on my lawyer friends, like we should be telling people like what's happening so that folks are not continuously activated by things that are not likely not even going to stand in the long run. So I think that's where we went astray, because we're really fighting about 3 letters, right? We're not fighting about the underlying concepts. Right. Our country is naturally diverse, right? We just are. Like that doesn't go anywhere, right? If you look at the definition of diversity, it's being composed of different elements. We all have it. We all want to be included, right? We all want to be part of something, and we all want to be part of something that's fair. So all of those things are what DEI is, but because we didn't define that well from the outset, the 3 letters have been weaponized.
When we come forward, I want to get Dr. Anthony and Natalie's take on the story that's bubbling up about federal agencies that are flagging or avoiding words like Black and racism, a chilling shift to align with the Trump administration directives. A lot of critics are calling it censorship. I'm curious as to how is that playing out in the work of our social workers across the country and human resource professionals across the country. We got 2 of the right ones to help us answer that question when we come forward. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you've tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Black New York Attorney General Letitia James is warning businesses against price gouging during current wildfires, reminding them it's illegal under state law. She urges anyone affected to report it to her office, saying there will be consequences for violators. As Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams faces corruption fallout, a Quinnipiac poll shows his approval at a historic low of 20%, with 56% of voters calling for his resignation. Nearly a month after going missing on Lake Oconee, the body of African-American teacher Gary Jones has been found. Search crews recovered him about 100 yards from where his fiancée, who was an HBCU Spelman University professor, was found. And attorneys general from 15 states are clarifying that diversity programs remain legal. They say President Trump's order and an Education Department directive don't ban them, and a Supreme Court ruling only bars race-based admissions, not efforts to diversify applicants. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Woodland Hills, it's a crash on the 101 southbound before Topanga Canyon, out of lanes to the right shoulder. Delays backing up away from Lost Hills out of Calabasas. Echo Park on the 101 northbound at Glendale Boulevard. That's a crash. It's out of lanes now, and delays are pretty messy away from 4th Street. South LA 110 northbound at the 105. They're clearing a crash out of the left lane. That drive is slow moving away from El Segundo Boulevard beyond the wreck, slowing ahead all the way to the 5 in Elysian Park. And in Orange, a crash on the 55 northbound before Knoll Ranch Roads off to the shoulder. Delays away from Chapman Avenue.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team is back at number 1 in the Associated Press Top 25 poll. UCLA returned to number 1 after Sunday's win over USC for the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. The Bruins, 30-2, were number 1 for 12 weeks until they lost to USC on February 13th. The Trojans and Bruins are at combined 58-5. The rest of the top 5 this week: South Carolina, UConn, USC, and Texas. The Chargers signed linebacker Khalil Mack to a one-year deal for $18 million. The 34-year-old Mack was a free agent. Mack had 6 sacks last season and missed only 1 game. NFL Hall of Fame running back Eddie George is leaving Tennessee State to coach Bowling Green University. George was at Tennessee State for 4 years. He led the HBCU school to the Division I AA playoffs last season and was the Coach of the Year in the Ohio Valley Conference. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I feel so alone.
I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed.
I don't want to inside.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to be in conversation with two really incredible leaders on the front lines. There's a lot coming at us each and every day. And, you know, we try to be that safe space where, you know, we can get a little bit smarter, we can get a little savvier, you know, we can go beyond the headlines and really manage our energy better. Because it's going to be a long ride in the arena here. And so we want to make sure that we are staying at our fighting weight here on A More Perfect Union. I'm joined with Dr. Anthony Estreet. He is CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. And I'm also joined with Natalie E. Norfus. She's the founder of the Norfus Firm with decades of experience as a labor employment attorney and human resource and DEI practitioner. They are helping us to make it make sense. And I'm not sure if you all saw this, but a number of federal agencies have now flagged or they avoid words like Black and racism to comply with the Trump administration. As the Trump White House continues to transform the federal government, we know that they have taken particular issue with race, with gender, with sexuality. And according to a New York Times analysis of memos, federal agency guidance and other documents have found that since taking the oath on January 20th, certain words, no coincidence, have been identified as needing to be removed from government websites or eliminated from connected materials. How in the world can social workers do their work? How can they do their jobs in this environment, Dr. Anthony?
Yeah, so it's making it extremely difficult, not just in how social workers do their jobs, but also how people are showing up in the space, right? You know, certainly we have received confirmation that certainly people in different agencies in the federal government have been told to remove pronouns from their email address and things like that. And so as we're thinking about the various terms that are being removed or scrubbed from the website, it's almost as if someone was trying to erase people from how they show up in the world, right? And so I think social workers can certainly continue to fight back by, one, providing support, because when people are trying to erase you in your very existence, it could be a very frightening thing. It could be a thing that leads to depression. And also, right, we want to make sure that people are well enough to continue this fight. But two, also find community. I think that, yes, these are harmful approaches to eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also realize that community is more than just work. You can find community outside in other places to help offset some of the feelings that you're having, right? Because at the end of the day, the federal government or the executive orders merely directs the federal government around what should and should not be done. Certainly, there's going to be legal challenges around what can happen and what can't. But in the meantime, agencies are complying out of fear for what could come, right? And so I think that's a whole nuance. And I think Natalie also said, I wish that there was a way to let people know more about what's going on, right? And so it goes back to Civics 101 and the three branches of government, and that, yes, the executive branch can do executive orders, but we also have the judicial branch and the legislative branch that can also change that and override it. So a lot of different things in there. But at the end of the day, it is about building community, making people feel whole, fighting against any type of oppression where people are silenced. And again, it goes back to our original conversation around diversity, equity, inclusion, and how people have relegated that to what they believe is this woke culture, when it's really just making people feel like they belong in their environment, right? And so I identify as a Black man. Somebody else may identify as a Black trans woman. At the end of the day, we're there to do our job, and we can both exist in that space and have our full identities very vibrant to help strengthen the workplace. I think the most recent statistics that I have read is that most employers that embrace diversity, equity, inclusion actually have higher scores on workplace culture. They have higher productivity. They have higher output. Certainly, we've seen what happens when you remove diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm sure Target is not having a very good time right now. But at the same time, diversity, equity, inclusion is not a bad thing. And the mere fact that we're trying to limit the amount of words that people can say is not where it's at.
It's wild. And you're right. I think companies like Target are having a hard time because you can show us better than you can tell us.
Absolutely.
Show us better than you can tell us. And, Target has told us a very compelling story about where they stand, what their commitments are. Right. I mean, remember, following the murder of George Floyd, they were one of the first companies that, really stood out front on the issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and said, look at us as a model.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're still looking at them. And some folks are looking at them a little crazy right now. But Natalie, I want to ask you this question. You're the perfect person to answer this question.
Oh no, we'll see. We'll see.
In my mind, no, I trust you can. Once upon a time, I was president of an employee resource group at a company I worked for, and I know this space very well as a part of my dissertation research. Employee resource groups and business resource groups, they make a big difference in terms of creating a workplace culture, a workplace climate where people can feel like they belong and therefore be more productive. And so talk to me about how you're hearing HR professionals sort of navigate their engagement with employee resource groups, given that there are companies and organizations that are saying, don't even say the word Black or say the acronym LGBTQ.
So I think right now, and I should back up a couple, just one step, because remember, I live in Florida. So we've been dealing with these conversations for a couple of years now because of the legislation we had that seems to have set the tone for everything else that we're dealing with. And I think that what I have been saying and seeing for at least 3 years is that HR folks are a little bit behind the 8 ball on some of these trends, right? And so how do I know that? I know that from doing investigations and the ways in which some of these complaints are handled or not. I know when I'm asking questions like, so when I say the term microaggression, what does that mean to you? And I get a blank stare. I know from those types of things. And so I think we were already at a little bit of a knowledge deficit because HR people were bombarded during the pandemic with getting people from in the office to in the homes and to back and to all the different things. And so when I say they're behind on some of the trends, I don't mean that to be critical. I mean that they have to triage all of these people issues on a daily basis. So really what we've been trying to do with our clients is again, like this is like every opening scene of a perfect robber movie, right? Create the diversion, like in Ocean's 11, where it's the diversion and then the diamond is being stolen in the back, right? Like, let's kind of bring ourselves to that's where we are right now. And so there's going to be something else to jump on soon enough, but really working with them on ensuring what are your business goals. I mean, that's how we do DEI, is aligning it to the business. As I shared with these leaders today, this is a management framework. It's not a program. It's not a check the box. It's the lens you apply to the work you do. And so I think the more we can help people sort of understand, we're just dealing with a mindset, a framework, and how we ensure that we're getting the best results each day is the approach. A lot of our clients are doing audits of their practices to make sure they're not going to run into any sort of issues with the federal government. The words of the executive order, of course, we know it's enjoined, but we also understand that the fear it's created. So people still want to be safe. And so I think a lot of this is just really looking at what is the safest thing to do within the current climate without giving up on your commitments. Because a lot of what we're seeing, and I love your tagline of Beyond the Headlines, is the headlines would make it seem like no one's doing DEI. We're just calling it something different right now because all of this stuff still has to happen. And a lot of the initiatives that people had in progress are still going because, for example, if your managers aren't trained on how to manage people, that you run the risk of the work not getting done, you run the risk of claims. And so these are all just basic business practices. A lot of what we're talking about is just basic business practices that would have to persist no matter what.
Dr. Anthony, I'm going to give you the final word in about a minute. We know that it is National Social Work Month, and social workers make such a material difference in the lives of so many of our fellow Americans, so many of our neighbors, and help us understand, how can people support the work of social workers day to day? How can people support the mission of your organization?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, for starters, if you see a social worker, say a kind word. I think that, kindness goes a long way in the space that we're in. I think the other part of it too is, again, getting people involved. There's a lot of legislation at both the state and federal levels that support social workers and the work that we do on behalf of individuals, families, and communities, and really get behind that. I think, now we're in this place of coalition politics, like everybody's involved, or everybody wants to be involved and do something, right? People are still understanding what executive orders are. They're understanding, what tariffs are. And so as people are becoming educated and more involved, I think it's time for people to get involved and really start holding our elected officials accountable. If your elected official is not doing what they should, certainly start to advocate or get involved with groups that support social workers, that support social justice, that support making sure that everybody has a voice in this world, right? And I think that in those groups, you'll also find a lot of social workers with like-minded stories and beliefs. And I think that's how we get there, right? Our Social Work Month theme this year is compassion plus action. And it really just reminds people that we got to have compassion in the world that we live in, but compassion alone is not going to change anything. People have to get involved. They have to have some type of action. And so my thing is, I would tell people to find that compassion again, make sure we're having these critical conversations, and then put that into action to make change in your communities, whether it is at the local or state level, but that's going to help us to make changes at the federal level.
And speaking of making changes at the federal level, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. We know that the continuing resolution to fund the government will expire within the next week or so. We also know that there are some pretty severe proposed cuts to Medicaid, somewhere in the neighborhood of $880 billion. Talk to us about what the National Association of Social Workers is doing in response to the budget deadline and those proposed cuts.
No, so listen, the National Association has continued to advocate on behalf of social workers and other professionals. A proposed budget cut to Medicaid and Medicare would literally put those that are most vulnerable or rely on those social safety net programs in a worse state. And so we're going to continue to advocate. I myself am part of the CEO Alliance for Mental Health. And in that, we're looking at ways to increase funding for mental health services, increase funding for prevention services around mental health and behavioral health. And so as we're thinking about, the proposed budget and what those cuts can do, we have to continue to fight and advocate. Because again, I think this is one of those misnomers where people are like, oh, people that are engaged in using Medicaid and Medicare are not holding their share, when in fact that couldn't be furthest from the truth, right? And I think that when we start to take away money from those that need it most, or benefit from those that need it most, while also giving breaks to those that have an excess or an abundance of money, I think that we are looking at this problem totally in the wrong direction. And so again, we are almost like penalizing the poor and building the country on the backs of poor people by slashing budgets at the Medicaid and Medicare level.
So many issues, not enough time. It only means that we need to invite you both back. We really have learned so much from you. And in a time like this, we need, trusted leaders on the front lines that we can really rely on for information we can trust. My thanks to Natalie E. Norfus. She is the founder of the Norfus Firm, a celebrated labor and employment attorney and HR DEI practitioner. Also, my thanks to Dr. Anthony Estreet, the CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. Happy National Social Worker Month. Please come back again soon.
Will do.
You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, The Quiet Part Out Loud. When we come forward, and I'll give you a hint, Harriet Tubman's involved.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago when California first took on the tobacco industry. Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 42%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening. See our progress at undo.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. It's time for the quiet part out loud. NPR is reporting that on Harriet Tubman Day, a new effort to place the abolitionist on the $20 bill launches. Can you imagine in the midst of everything that's going on, that there are folks that are still moving forward in this effort to get Harriet Tubman on that $20 bill, a measure to replace President Andrew Jackson with abolitionist Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill is being taken up again in Congress. Today's announcement is the latest push to honor Tubman on the currency and remove Jackson, the country's seventh president and a slaveholder. It follows a decade-long effort of previous attempts, including through legislation that has stalled in Congress. The announcement also coincides with Harriet Tubman Day, a holiday honoring the activists who led enslaved people to freedom on the Underground Railroad. The new bill, called the Harriet Tubman Tribute Act of 2025, calls for the Treasury Secretary to include the abolitionist face on all $20 bills printed after December 31st, 2030. That's according to a draft of the bill obtained by sources. The proposed legislation, get this, it also stipulates that the production of these bills cannot be delayed more than 2 years unless it's determined that issuing the bills after the designated date would create an unacceptable risk of counterfeiting or to the safe, secure, and speedy functioning of the United States economy. You think this is going to happen? You think it's possible that we're going to see this Harriet Tubman bill pass through this Congress? Let me remind you, this is the same Congress, the same Republican-led Congress that threatened Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. They threatened to cut her transportation funding to the tune of $250 million if she didn't remove Black Lives Matter Plaza. Remember Black Lives Matter Plaza that she put up following the murder of George Floyd? Well, House Republicans said, you need to take that down. And right now, as we speak in our nation's capital, you know what's happening? They're taking it down. They are dismantling Black Lives Matter Plaza. And it didn't stop with just a $250 million cut to the budget for DC local government. They're staring down over $1 billion in cuts to their budget. And as many of you know, Washington, D.C. Is not independent from the federal government. That Congress has to vote on D.C.'s budget. So for all the people out there telling you that, well, you know, Mayor Bowser should have stood up to them. She should have said, not on my watch will you dismantle Black Lives Matter Plaza. Other folks saying DC mayor has to govern. She has to protect the livelihood of city employees who may very well feel the effects of these severe cuts. I mean, we're talking about 1/6 of the budget of our nation's capital. So this story isn't near being over, but kind of makes you wonder. The same Congress that has forced the DC mayor to dismantle Black Lives Matter Plaza, are they really about to pass a bill to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill and take President Jackson, one of President Trump's favorite presidents, off that bill? But we can all still hope, can't we? You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, I'll be joined with Greg Mathis Jr. talking about his new film and also comparing his DC days with what is a DC now. KBLA Talk 1580.